star-making class. The sight of him sprinting up the hill to the winning post, a dark streak of rhythm, had given me a rare bursting feeling of admiration, of joy, probably even of love. Energise was beautiful and courageous, and chock-full of will to win, and it was because he had won, and won in that fashion, that my hovering intention to break with Jody had hardened into action. I should, I suppose, have chosen a better time and place. "I picked out Energise for you at the sales," he said. "I know. And all your other winners?" "Yes. And I moved into bigger stables because of you." I nodded briefly. "Well, you can't let me down now." Disbelief had given way to anger. His bright blue eyes sharpened to belligerence, and the muscles tightened round his mouth. "I'm taking the horses away," I repeated, "and we'll start with Energise. You can leave him here when you go home." "You're mad." "No." "Where's he going, then?" Actually, I had no idea. I said, "I'll make all the arrangements. Just leave him in the stable here and go home without him." "You've no right to do this." Full-scale anger blazed in his eyes. "You're a bloody rotten shit." But I had every right. He knew it, and I knew it. Every owner had the right at any time to withdraw his custom if he was dissatisfied with his trainer. The fact that the right was seldom exercised was beside the point. Jody was rigid with fury. "I'm taking that horse home with me, and nothing is going to stop me." His very intensity stoked up in me an answering determination that he should not. I shook my head decisively. I said, "No, Jody, the horse stays here, over my dead body." His body, alive, quivered with pugnaciousness. "As of this moment," I said, "I'm cancelling your authority to act on my behalf, and I'm going straight into the weighing room to make that clear to all the authorities who need to know." He glared. "You owe me money," he said. "You can't take your horses away until you've paid." I paid my bills with him on the nail every month, and owed him only for the current few weeks. I pulled my checkbook out of my pocket and unclipped my pen. "I'll give you a check right now." "No, you bloody well won't." He snatched the whole checkbook out of my hand and ripped it in two. Then he threw the pieces over his shoulder, and all the loose halves of the check scattered in the wind. Faces turned our way in astonishment, and the eyes of the press came sharply to life. I couldn't have chosen anywhere more public for what was developing into a first-class row. Jody looked around him, looked at the men with notebooks, saw his allies. His anger grew mean. "You'll be sorry," he said. "I'll chew you into little bits." The face that 5 minutes earlier had smiled with cheerful, decisive friendliness had gone for good. Even if I now retracted and apologized, the old relationship could not be re-established. Confidence, like Humpty Dumpty, couldn't be put together again. His fierce opposition had driven me further than I had originally meant to go. All the same, I still had the same objective, even if I had to fight harder to achieve it. "Whatever you do," I said, "you won't keep my horses." "You're ruining me," Jody shouted. The press advanced a step or two. Jody noticed. Maliciousness flooded through him and twisted his features with spite. "You big rich bastards don't give a damn who you hurt." I turned abruptly away from him and went into the weighing room, and there carried out my promise to disown him officially as my trainer. I signed forms cancelling his authority to act for me, and for good measure also included a separate handwritten note to say that I had expressly forbidden him to remove Energise from Sandown Park. No one denied I had the right. There was just an element of coolness toward an owner who was so vehemently and precipitously ridding himself of the services of the man who had 10 minutes ago given him a winner. I didn't tell them that it had taken a very long time for the mug to face the fact that he was being conned. I didn't tell them how I had thrust the first suspicions away as disloyalty, and had made every possible allowance before being reluctantly convinced. I didn't tell them, either, that the reason for my determination now lay squarely in Jody's first reaction to my saying I was removing my horses. Because he hadn't, not then or afterward, asked the one natural question. He hadn't asked why. When I left the weighing room, both Jody and the press had gone from the unsaddling enclosure. Racegoers were hurrying towards the stands to watch the imminent steeplechase, the richest event of the afternoon. And even the officials with whom I'd just been dealing were dashing off with the same intent. I had no appetite for the race. Decided instead to go down to the racecourse stables and ask the gatekeeper there to make sure Energise didn't vanish in a puff of smoke. but as the gatekeeper was there to prevent villainous strangers walking in, and not any bona fide racehorses walking out, I wasn't sure how much use he would be, even if he agreed to help. He was sitting in his sentry box, a middle-aged, sturdy figure in a navy blue serge uniform with brass buttons. Various lists on clipboards hung on hooks on the walls, alongside an electric heater fighting a losing battle against the December chill. "Excuse me," I said. "I want to ask you about my horse." "Can't come in here," he interrupted bossily. "No owners allowed in without trainers." "I know that," I said. "I just want to make sure my horse stays here." "What horse is that?" He was adept at interrupting, like many people in small positions of power. He blew on his fingers and looked at me over them without politeness. "Energise," I said. He screwed up his mouth and considered whether to answer. I suppose that he could find no reason against it except natural unhelpfulness, because in the end he said grudgingly, "Would it be a black horse trained by Leeds?" "It would." "Gone, then," he said. "Gone?" "That's right. Lad took him off a couple of minutes ago." He jerked his head in the general direction of the path down to the area where the motor horse boxes were parked. "Leeds was with him. Ask me, they'll have driven off by now." The idea seemed to cheer him. He smiled. I left him to his sour satisfaction and took the path at a run. It led down between bushes and opened abruptly straight onto the gravelled acre where dozens of horse boxes stood in haphazard rows. Jody's box was fawn with scarlet panels along the sides, and it was already manoeuvring out of its slot and turning to go between two of the rows on its way to the gate. I slid my binoculars to the ground and left them, and fairly sprinted, ran in front of the first row of boxes, and raced round to the end to find Jody's box completing a turn about 30 yards away and accelerating straight toward me. I stood in its path and waved my arms for the driver to stop. The driver knew me well enough. His name was Andy Fred. He drove my horses regularly. I saw his face looking horrified and strained as he put his hand on the horn button and punched it urgently. I ignored it, sure that he would stop. He was advancing between a high wooden fence on one side and the flanks of parked horse boxes on the other, and it wasn't until there was no sign he knew what his brakes were for that it occurred to me that maybe Energise was about to leave over my dead body, not Jody's. Anger, not fear, kept me rooted to the spot. Andy Fred's nerve broke first, thank God, but only just. He wrenched the wheel round savagely when the massive radiator grille was a bare 6 feet from my annihilation, and the diesel throb was a roar in my ears. He had left it too late for braking. The sudden swerve took him flatly into the side of the foremost of the parked boxes, and, with screeching and tearing sounds of metal, the front corner of Jody's box ploughed forward and inward until the colliding doors of the cabs of both vehicles were locked in one crumpled mess. Glass smashed and tinkled and flew about with razor edges. The engine stalled and died. The sharp bits on the front of Jody's box had missed me, but the smooth fender caught me solidly as I leaped belatedly to get out of the way. I lay where I'd bounced, half against the wooden fence, and wholly winded. Andy Fred jumped down unhurt from the unsmashed side of his cab, and advanced with a mixture of fear, fury, and relief. "What the bloody hell you think you're playing at?" he yelled. "Why didn't you stop?" I said weakly. I doubt if he heard me. In any case, he didn't answer. He turned instead to the exploding figure of Jody, who arrived at a run along the front of the boxes, the same way that I had come. He practically danced with rage when he saw the crushed cabs. "You stupid bugger," he shouted at Andy Fred. "You stupid, sodding effing—" The burly box driver shouted straight back. "He stood right in my way. I told you not to stop. I'd have killed him." "No, you wouldn't. I'm telling you, he stood there, just stood there. He'd have jumped if you'd kept on going, you stupid bugger. Just look what you've done, you stupid—" Their voices rose loud and acrimonious into the wind. Further away, the commentator's voice boomed over the public address system, broadcasting the progress of the steeplechase. On the other side of the high wooden fence, the traffic pounded up and down the London to Guildford Road. I gingerly picked myself up off the cold ground and leaned against the weathered planks. Nothing broken. Breath coming back. Total damage, all the buttons missing from my overcoat. There was a row of small right-angled tears down the front where the buttons had been. I looked at them vaguely and knew I'd been lucky. Andy Fred was telling Jody at the top of his raucous voice that he wasn't killing anyone for Jody's sake. He was bloody well not. "You're fired," Jody yelled. "Right." He took a